and welcome to the very first podcast with True You Recovery Coaching. I am the founder and coach. My name is Ariel Turner. I am so excited to be doing this today. This is one of but many goals for the future of True You Recovery Coaching. Stay tuned for more episodes each week. We will be covering a variety of topics, but you'll be learning more about my story and why I've decided to start this venture. First off, a little bit of background about me. I have worked in addiction treatment and mental health settings for about the last 10 years. I initially started to go into the field because I had personal recovery. At the time, I was struggling with primarily substance use. I later found out that addiction was so much deeper than just drug of choice, and that I could really be addicted to everything. Right now, I'm coming up on about 5 years in January in recovery from not just substances, but also other behavioral addictions. I've also recovered from numerous traumas and really used my pain, and I've been able to turn it into strength, which is one of the reasons why I started this company. I know that I have a powerful story and a voice that should be heard, and I'm just hoping to reach more people and hopefully inspire those that are struggling to come out of a dark place and seek help. So stay tuned, and I hope you find enjoyment from this series. Today, for my first episode, I could not think of a better place to start than some skills that I learned that have greatly benefited me over the last almost 5 years. A big part of my story is a divorce and a toxic, abusive relationship that took me not just years to understand, but years to recover from. And I can't even tell you how much suffering that I went through. In my first year of recovery, it was hard enough needing to get clean and sober and dealing with the wreckage of that and how it had affected my family, my daughter, my career. That's already challenging. But to also have to unravel the damage of abuse just made that journey so much more challenging. And it's interesting because the very first time that I was able to find some recovery, I was 22. I was so young, so naive, and I had these rose-colored glasses for life. And in my head, I really just thought that as long as I made good decisions and I worked hard, that everything would work out. And unfortunately, when you find yourself facing very challenging, manipulative, and abusive individuals, those basic principles of just trying to be a good person and be honest, they bite you in the butt. They just don't work. And I had to figure that out myself. So I hope this message goes out to anyone who has a difficult person in their life. These skills that I'm going to get into, they can work with really anyone. It doesn't have to be necessarily that abusive personality. It can just be with people that you have high conflict with and you wish to not engage in the conflict. So during that initial period for me, where I was sifting through what was real and what was not in my recovery process, I read numerous books that actually had a profound impact on me. And I grew my education and I began to pick up the pieces and make the connections to how did this happen? How did I get here? How was I susceptible? One of the most challenging things to accept was the fact that I was the right person at the right time to fall prey to that. And I wasn't necessarily a victim. It was the right conditions. And so I had to take personal responsibility for that, for my part. Although a lot of the things that I went through, I understand that it wasn't my fault and I didn't deserve it. At the same time, I did play a role. I left myself open to that sort of abuse. I made myself too readily available. And so in the beginning, I was determined to protect myself from further abuse, as this individual is someone that I still have to maintain a relationship with. And I don't want to put too many of the details out there, but I really can't talk about my story without this. Seeing that with all of the addiction and trauma and everything that I went through my entire life, walking away from this relationship and healing myself was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. It broke me down, every fiber of who I thought I was, and challenged every belief that I had about the world and love. And I just can't even begin to describe to you how broken I was when I left that relationship, how confused, how tormented. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. So it took a really long time. But I am so happy to say today that I needed that. I could tell him thank you to his face for everything that you did to me. And it wouldn't be spiteful or resentful. I would genuinely mean it. Because while he was breaking me down, it gave me an opportunity to build myself back up and find the true me and really discover what are the things in life that bring me joy. Who am I? You know, these age-old questions that we asked ourselves that in the past had seemed silly, or the answer was just too easy. And I discovered that the answer to that has to be found through a very long journey. That story, that little spiel that I just gave you, is actually where the inspiration for my slogan for the company was discovered. Together we can find your true you. I needed so much help, so many resources, so many people on my team so that I could find my true you. And it took several years of consistent daily work. But I can say today that the existence that I have and the person that I have become, I love who I am today. I love the life that I have. And it's not about the things that I have on the outside. It's about my internal experience and the things that I've learned. So let me share some of that with you. A few of the books that I read in early recovery that were profound for me are, number one, The Narcissist Playbook, Dana Morningstar. Number two, Psychopath Free by Jackson McKenzie. And then another follow-up by Jackson McKenzie, Whole Again. And finally, The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Through these 4 books, lots of AA meetings, lots of therapy, EMDR, self-care, quiet time and reflection, journaling, all of the coping skills, and not to mention the trial and error of mistakes and lived experience brought me to a place where I've healed those wounds today. And I'm so grateful that I was able to stumble on those books and those resources, and that I had so many people behind me supporting me. So 2 skills that I wanted to share with you today are what kept me from losing my mind during first couple of years where conflict was still very high with my ex. We were in about a 3.5, 4-year long custody battle. In fact, we still end up in court at times. It's unfortunate, but the first couple of years were the worst. It was just constant carrot and the stick, constant conflict, and my daughter was caught in the middle of it. In an attempt to try to mitigate some of that damage that she was experiencing, I dove into research and learning, and I just had to figure it out. I almost became obsessed for a period of time because I wanted to fix it so bad. Eventually, I realized that it was not a problem that I could, quote, fix, that it was more something that I had to just have peace and acceptance with and then practice my tools. So one of the tools is an acronym, JADE, JADE, just like the stone and the color. I've actually thought about getting a jade stone tattoo right on my thumb so that I could see it on a daily basis. That way, if I ever get a text message or a phone call that is somewhat disturbing, I can just look right down at my hand and remember this. So if you're in the middle of a conflict, you know that these 4 things: justify, argue, defend, or explain. If you find yourself doing any one of those, you will spiral down a rabbit hole that never ends, that constantly comes back to, it's my fault, and there's nothing I can do about it. My voice will not be heard, and that's that. So if you find yourself doing that, immediately say, Jade, 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 I'm not going to do it. So you may be asking yourself right now, well, Ariel, then what do I do? That leads to the next technique, which is called gray rock. Imagine gray rock on the ground. What is it doing? Nothing. It just sits there. It's plain lifeless. It's not showing emotion. That is what you have to try to envision when you are in front of and communicating with a person like that. No emotion, no expression, no personal information, guys. I cannot stress that enough. Do not share any ounce of being a human, of what my life is like, how I'm feeling, and check out what's going on with me. None of that whatsoever. Any personal information is used as emotional weaponry. That was another big thing that I learned in the book, is that I could not be myself and I could not be a human in front of this person. That may be a challenging concept, and it takes practice. It is really hard to utilize that pause when triggered and when upset. And when there's injustice happening, it's really easy to get hung up on, my voice needs to be heard. I can't stand for this. This isn't right. How could they do this to me? But I promise you, my friend, if you ride in on that horse, it's going to cause more pain. I have tried both consistently over and over again, and I banged my head on the wall enough with that to know that the best way is to practice jade and practice gray rock. I am able to walk away with my head held high, not let any comment whatsoever throw me out of my bubble of peace. And I saved my day. Otherwise, if I go down that rabbit hole, the rest of the day I'm consumed in thought and resentment and anger. And these days, if I let myself go there, I get an emotional hangover. I'm feeling it for days. My whole schedule is thrown off. Why are you going to give them that power? Don't do that. They have taken enough from you already. Put your foot down and learn how to use these valuable tips. I can't tell you how powerful these tools are. Just practice. Just practice them, and it gets better and it gets easier. Eventually, it will become second nature, where you're not phased at all. At all. It's such a wonderful feeling to be able to act as an outsider. So I get a phone call or a text that 4 years ago would have sent me screaming, crying, arguing. It doesn't bother me at all. And I now know that I don't have to get sucked into that stuff. I wish I would have known that when I was 22. I wish I could have seen the signs of love bombing and grooming. But I thought he was a dream come true. I thought he was the one. And I know that I am not alone in this. In addition to those books, I joined so many online groups on Facebook and on other websites where I got to hear the stories of other people who had been through the same exact thing. And it confirmed for me, oh my gosh, this is real. I did go through this. Because if you have experienced gaslighting or narcissistic abuse, you know that there's this voice in the back of your head that is always going to tell you, maybe they're right. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe whatever beliefs they instilled in you, maybe they're right. And we question our reality. We don't know what is real. It's so confusing. So to see all these other people who experience the exact same thing and they're telling their stories and I'm saying, oh my gosh, that exact same thing happened to me. Abuse can be really sneaky and you have to educate yourself on what it looks like. A lot of people think that it's black eyes and throwing objects. It doesn't have to be that at all. It can be much more covert, much more sinister, to where with the naked eye, no one's really going to see it. If you think that it's happening, you believe that it's real, even if you don't know if it's real, talk to someone. I cannot stress this enough. I lived so many years thinking that I was the problem, thinking that if I just did this next thing, that I could fix it and I could save my family. And although that was altruistic and admirable, and I thought I was doing the right thing for my daughter, I could have saved her a lot of misery by watching the conflict and feeling tension over those first almost 5 years of her life. So I'm grateful that it only took me 2 times to get out. It takes others a really long time, and it's not just women. Men can experience it as well, male partners or with other partners in general. It doesn't matter what the gender, sex, background, race, anyone can experience it. Very, very passionate about this topic. I'm sure you will hear me talk about it more. But if you received any message today, even if you don't have someone like this in your life or you have never experienced this, just know that those 2 little tips can be used really in any high conflict situation where you feel that you're being manipulated or you feel that you need to protect yourself and you need to disconnect so that it doesn't ruin your day, ruin your emotions, or worse. Just know there's help out there and there's tools. I hope you enjoyed my first installment of the podcast for True You Recovery Coaching. Again, my name is Ariel Turner, founder and coach. Thank you so much.